In the cold, quiet stillness of a huge office building, a company leader sat alone, weighed down by his own loneliness. He lived in success, but carried a heart full of emptiness. One night in that silence, he heard something unexpected, a janitor's voice singing softly as she worked. Her song was not smooth or trained, but it was real, shaking with emotion. It carried a sadness so deep that it broke through his walls and forced him to face the pain he had tried to bury for years. That moment became the start of a strange and powerful bond between two very different people, a bond that would change both of their lives forever. Dear listeners, get ready for a story filled with music and mystery. A single melody, sung in the quiet of night, will uncover hidden truths and spark a connection that ignores wealth, power, and social class. What secrets can be hidden in a song sung when no one is supposed to hear? How can two hurting hearts find comfort in a city built from glass and steel? This is a tale meant to touch your soul, leaving you with both wonder and hope. Dear friends, dear kind hearts who gather here to listen, thank you for being part of this space. You are the reason these stories matter. Your open hearts, your belief in quiet love, your courage in showing weakness, and your hope in small moments that can change everything. These are the sparks that give life to every tale I share. Tonight, the story belongs to Ethan and Lila. A song in the night will reveal a truth that could either destroy or save them both. What secrets hide in the tall shadows of a skyscraper? What kind of hope can grow from the pain of two people who have lost so much? Let us step into this story together, hearts open, ready to feel whatever it brings. The city skyline shone against the night, bright but cold, like sharp stars trapped inside towers of glass and steel. The tall buildings stood like blades, slicing into the dark sky. On the 47th floor of Caldwell Enterprises, Ethan Caldwell sat alone. The weight pressing down on him was heavier than the polished wooden desk in front of him. At 42 years old, he was one of the most powerful men in business. His choices could move the stock market, shift billions of dollars, and make people afraid to stand against him. But all that power and success came with a price. It had taken away his laughter, drained him of warmth, and left his heart tired and heavy. Friends had slipped away, leaving only polite messages and surface-level greetings. His family had grown distant, no longer close, pushed out to the edges of his life. And love? Love had died 10 years ago, the day his sister Emily was taken from him. Her loss was still an open wound, her memory an echo that filled the silence whenever the world grew quiet. Inside his glass-walled office, the only sound was the steady hum of the air conditioner, cold and empty, keeping him company like a machine that didn't care. Then, breaking that silence, came a sound he didn't expect, a song. At first, the sound was faint, slipping through the walls like a whisper carried in a dream. Yet it reached him, curling around his chest and tightening until he could barely breathe. A woman's voice rose in the stillness, low, shaky, but filled with raw feeling. It wasn't trained or smooth. It was honest, as if every note carried a secret she couldn't keep inside any longer. The song was heavy with longing, grief, and something hidden, something that made Ethan's breath catch in his throat. He couldn't hear every word clearly, but the meaning came through anyway. He felt it in the images her voice painted. The laughter of a child, nights without stars, a love that hurt even after it was gone. His hand froze above the contract on his desk, the pen spilling ink into the paper like tears soaking into skin. For a brief moment he wondered, was this real? Or was his exhausted mind playing tricks on him, summoning ghosts to keep him company at midnight? He pushed his chair back, the leather groaning under his weight. The song pulled at him, stronger than logic, stronger than reason. Step by step, he stood and followed the sound, drawn forward by something he didn't understand but couldn't resist. Who was singing here in the heart of his empire? What kind of pain could make a voice tremble like? A voice that felt strangely familiar. The hallway was dim, shadows clinging to the walls like secrets waiting to be spoken. And then he saw her, a janitor in a plain gray uniform, blending into the dark as she pushed a cleaning cart. Her back was to him, her song rising and falling, meant only for the empty offices. The tune wasn't perfect, but it was alive, every note like an open wound. The words floated into the air. Sing to the moon, it'll answer soon. Hold the stars tight, they'll guide you right. The lyrics pulled at Ethan's heart, tearing open memories he thought he had locked away forever. Emily's teasing grin as she sang old songs off-key, her laughter filling their childhood home. And then, the sharp sound of screeching tires, the crash that had stolen her life. His throat tightened, his chest aching with the grief he had buried under years of ambition. Who was this woman, and why did her song feel like it was speaking directly to his soul? Suddenly she turned. The song stopped mid-note. Her dark eyes widened, startled, catching the dim glow of the exit sign. Fear flickered across her face, as if she had been caught doing something forbidden. Her name tag read, Lila. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, clutching the handle of her cart like a shield. "I didn't know anyone was still here." "Don't apologize," Ethan said softly. His voice came out gentler than he meant, slipping past the walls he had built around himself. "That song, it was beautiful. Where did it come from?" He stepped closer, closing the distance between them. The air seemed to thicken, carrying something heavy and unspoken. Why did her voice feel like a key turning in a door he thought would never open again? What secret was hidden in the trembling notes she sang? Lila's gaze dropped to the floor, her hands twisting the hem of her uniform, worn and frayed at the edges. "Just something I made up," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Keeps me company at night." But there was a tremor in her words, a shadow behind her eyes that hinted at a deeper truth. Was she guarding a secret? What story lived in the spaces between her lyrics, waiting to be uncovered? Ethan should have walked away, back to his contracts, his solitude, his empire of glass and steel. But her song had cracked open a wound he'd spent years ignoring, and he couldn't let it go. "You sing like you've lost something precious," he said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. "What's the story behind it?" Her shoulders stiffened, and for a moment he thought she'd shut him out, her eyes flickering with a fear that wasn't just embarrassment. But then she exhaled, her breath a quiet surrender, and the words came like a confession. "It's my daughter, Amara," she said, her voice breaking on the name, soft as a prayer. "She loved music. We'd sing together, making up silly songs while I cleaned our little apartment. She'd laugh so hard she'd snort, her little nose scrunching up like a flower bud." A faint smile flickered, then vanished, snuffed out by a pain that seemed to swallow the light. "Cancer took her 2 years ago. She was 9. I sing to keep her close, to remember her voice." The air grew heavy, pressing against Ethan's chest like a stone. He wanted to say something profound, something to ease the raw grief in her eyes, but his own pain choked him. "I lost someone too," he said finally, the words rough, unpracticed, spilling from a place he'd kept locked. "My sister, Emily. Car accident 10 years ago. She was my anchor, the only one who really saw me. I still hear her laugh sometimes when it's too quiet." Why was he telling her this? He hadn't spoken Emily's name aloud since the funeral, where he'd stood alone, his parents too shattered to hold him. Why did this stranger's song pull his secrets to the surface? Lila's eyes met his, and for a moment, the corporate hierarchy dissolved. They were just two souls, standing in a shadowed hallway, carrying wounds that bled in silence. "That's why you're here so late," she said, her voice soft but sure, cutting through his defenses. "The quiet's worse at home, isn't it? It's where the ghosts live." He nodded, his throat too tight to speak. What was it about her that made him feel so exposed, so seen? They stood in silence, the weight of their shared losses a fragile bridge between them, trembling but unbroken. Then Lila picked up her mop, her movements careful, deliberate, as if she feared breaking the moment. Before she turned away, she looked at him, her eyes holding a quiet strength. "Keep listening for her laugh," she said. "It's still there, even if it's hard to hear." Her words lingered, haunting him as he returned to his office, the echo of her song curling around his heart like smoke. Who was Lila, really? Her melody felt like a confession, but also a warning. What truth was she hiding? And why did he feel it could unravel everything he'd built? The next night, Ethan stayed late again, not for the stack of contracts on his desk, but for Lila. The office, once a stark symbol of his drive, turned into a place where Lila's songs painted pictures of love and loss. She sang about Amara, her love for bright crayons that colored their walls, her habit of tucking cookies into her pillowcase, her dream of singing under a starry sky. Ethan listened, pulled into a world of struggle and warmth that made his wealth feel empty, like coins rattling in a hollow box. In return, he shared bits of Emily, her wild dreams of seeing the world, her playful teasing when he wore his first suit, the heavy guilt he felt for not being in the car that night, for picking work over her. The memory stung. Emily had begged him to drive her to a concert, but he was buried in work, brushing her off with a promise to meet her later. Hours later, a call came. Her car smashed into a tree, her laughter gone forever. Why hadn't he gone? Why had he put work first? Lila's songs carried a mystery that tugged at him. Some words felt like cries for help, others like warnings. The shadow hears when you sing. It knows the truth you can't say. What did it mean? Was she singing to Amara, or to something, or someone else? He watched her as she cleaned, her movements smooth despite her heavy heart, her eyes holding a depth that pulled him in and kept him at a distance. There was something she wasn't telling, a secret hidden in her shaky notes. What was she keeping back? Was it just her grief, or something more? One night, as the city's lights sparkled like a false promise, Lila handed him a worn notebook, its edges tattered, its cover stained with time and tears. Amara's songs, she said, her voice soft, almost lost in the office's hum. I wrote them down after she was gone. They're all I have of her. Her eyes held a challenge, or maybe a plea, as she placed the notebook in his hands. What would he find in those pages? Why did she trust him with something so personal? Ethan took the notebook home, leaving the office before midnight for the first time in years. In his cold penthouse, where city lights cast long shadows on marble floors, he sat under a single lamp, the notebook open like a treasured book. It was filled with childish rhymes and heartfelt words, written in Lila's careful handwriting. Sing to the moon, it'll answer soon, Amara had written, her words dancing across the page like a child hope. Hold the stars tight, they'll show you the way. Tears blurred the ink, not just for Amara, but for Emily, for the life he'd let slip away like sand. He could almost hear Emily's voice, teasing him for crying over work instead of her laughter filling the quiet of his home. But some pages felt off. Strange phrases chilled him. The shadow hears when you sing. And don't trust the men in white, they steal the light. Was this a child's imagination or something darker? What had Amara seen in her final days? What truth was Lila holding so tightly? He returned to the office the next night, the notebook heavy in his hand, his heart heavier still. Lila was in the break room wiping tables, her movement slow, as if carrying an unseen burden. I read it, he said, his voice calm but urgent. It's beautiful, but some parts don't add up. What did Amara mean by the shadow hears? And the men in white? He watched her closely, looking for a hint of the secret he felt she was hiding. She froze, her cloth still on the table, her knuckles turning white. She was just a kid, she said quickly, her voice tight. Kids write odd things, silly things. But her eyes flicked away, and Ethan's heart raced. She wasn't telling the truth, or not all of it. What was she guarding? Was it about Amara's death or something bigger? Something tied to his own world? I want to do something with her songs, he said, the idea coming out as if it had been waiting. A music program for kids like Amara. A place where they can sing, create, and dream. In her name, will you help me make it happen? His voice was steady, but his mind buzzed with questions. Why was she so closed off? What was she afraid he'd find? Lila's eyes softened, but her tension stayed, her hands shaking slightly as she held the cloth. That's too big, she said, her voice breaking like thin glass. I'm just a janitor, Ethan. I don't fit in your world. But her eyes showed a spark of longing, a bit of hope she couldn't fully hide. Why was she holding back? Was it fear of failing, or fear of what he might discover if he got closer? Because her voice needs to be heard, he said, stepping closer, his voice low and sincere. And maybe so does yours. He meant it more than anything in years. Her songs had stirred something in him, a spark of life he thought was long gone. But there was more to this, he could sense it. A shadow in her words, in Amara's lyrics, in the way Lila's eyes held secrets she wouldn't share. She didn't answer, but the air between them buzzed with possibility, heavy with questions left unspoken. What was Lila afraid of? Why did her songs feel like they were reaching beyond the grave? And why did Ethan feel like this was just the start of a truth that could break everything? The days that followed were a blur of late nights and quiet talks, each one pulling Ethan deeper into Lila's world. Her songs filled the hallways, each one a glimpse into Amara's life, her laughter like ringing bells, her love for glitter that left sparkles everywhere, the way she'd hum even in her sleep, a tune that kept the darkness away. Ethan shared more about Emily, her bold dreams of sailing the seas, the way she'd tease him for his stiff suits, the guilt that stuck to him like a shadow. He remembered the last time he saw her, her eyes shining with excitement as she headed to that concert, her voice calling back, "You're missing out, big brother." He'd laughed, promising to catch up, but the call came instead. A hospital, a crash, a life gone. The memory hurt, a wound that never closed, and Lila's presence, her song, seemed to ease it, even as they raised new questions. Her songs grew more vivid, showing clear pictures of Amara's life. Lila talked about their small apartment, walls covered in Amara's crayon rainbows, the smell of baking cookies in the air as they sang together. She'd make up words about flying to the moon, Lila said one night, her voice soft as she wiped a glass door. She'd say, "Mama, if I sing loud enough, the stars will answer." I believed her. Ethan smiled, imagining a girl with pigtails and a voice like sunlight. But the picture faded into the hospital room Lila described, cold and clean, the beeping machines drowning out Amara's hums. She kept singing, even when she was too weak to sit up, Lila whispered, her eyes far away. She said it kept the shadows away. What shadows? Ethan wondered, his heart tightening. Was it just a child's fear or something more? The notebook became his obsession. Each night, he read it under the dim light of his penthouse, the city's glow casting strange shadows across the pages. Amara's words mixed innocence and mystery. "The moon's my friend, it'll never end," followed by darker lines. "The shadow hears when you sing. It knows the truth you can't say." He traced the words, his fingers shaking. What truth? He found more strange entries, like "the men in white take the light. They hide it in the night." Was Amara talking about doctors or something else? The hospital where she died, St. Mary's, was a place Ethan knew. His company had paid for its research wing years ago. A coincidence or something worse? His mind raced, the pieces not fitting yet. What had Amara seen? What was Lila hiding? He confronted her one night in the break room, the notebook open in his hands, his voice calm but pressing. "Lila, these words, the shadow hears, the men in white, they're not just a kid's rhymes. What did Amara mean? What happened to her?" He watched her closely, looking for a break in her guarded face, a hint of the secret he felt hiding under her words. She froze, her cloth still on the table, her knuckles turning white. "She was a kid, Ethan," she said too fast, her voice tight. "She was sick, she was scared. She wrote things that didn't make sense." But her eyes looked away, and Ethan's heart sped up. She was lying, or at least holding back. What was she protecting? Was it Amara's memory, or a truth too dangerous to say? "I don't believe you," he said, stepping closer, his voice low but strong. "There's something you're not telling me. I can feel it in your songs, in her words. What happened to her, Lila?" His heart pounded, split between wanting to comfort her and needing the truth. Why was she so afraid? Was it just grief, or something that could shake his world? Her eyes glistened, tears close to falling, but she held them back, her jaw tight. "You don't know what you're asking," she whispered, her voice breaking like glass. "Some things they're better left buried." She turned away, her shoulders hunched, and Ethan felt a chill that wasn't from the air. What was she hiding? Had she seen something in that hospital, something she couldn't face? And why did he feel like the truth was linked to his own company? The idea for the music program took root, a light in the dark that Ethan held onto like a lifeline. He pictured a community center called Amara Song, a place where kids could sing, create, dream, a way to honor a girl he'd never met, but felt he knew through her mother's voice. He threw himself into it, drawing plans, calling donors, his heart full of purpose for the first time in years. Lila hesitated, her eyes full of doubt as they sat in his office. Papers spread on the desk. "It's too big," she said, her voice tight, her hands twisting her uniform hem. "I'm just a janitor, Ethan. I don't belong in your world of meetings and money." But her eyes showed a spark of longing, a bit of hope she couldn't hide. Why was she holding back? Was it fear of dreaming too much, or fear of what he might find if he got too close? He leaned forward, his voice low and real. "You're more than a janitor, Lila. You're Amara's voice, her heart. This program, it's for her, but it's for you too. Help me make it real." He meant it, his words heavy with feeling he hadn't had in years. Her song had woken something in him, a spark of life he thought was gone. But the mystery stayed, a shadow in her eyes, in the notebook's strange words. What was she afraid of? Why did her songs feel like they were reaching beyond the grave? They started meeting outside the office, in a small coffee shop where the air smelled of burnt beans and fresh starts. The shop was a safe spot, its old wooden tables and soft lights so different from a cold office building. Lila's stories grew richer, showing clear pictures of Amara's life. She described their apartment, a small space full of love, where Amara's crayon drawings covered the walls like a colorful blanket. "She'd draw rainbows everywhere," Lila said, a smile breaking through her sadness. "So they kept the bad dreams away." Ethan pictured it, the colors bright on the old walls, Amara's laughter filling the air. But Lila's voice grew dark when she talked about the hospital, St. Mary's, with its long halls, the sharp smell of cleaner, the machines that beeped like a timer. She sang even when she couldn't speak, Lila said, her hands shaking around her coffee cup. She said the music kept the shadows away. What shadows? Ethan wondered again, his heart tightening. Was it the sickness or something else? Ethan shared his own regrets, the words coming out in the quiet of the coffee shop. He told her about Emily's last day, how she'd begged him to drive her to a concert, her eyes bright with excitement. "I was too busy," he said, his voice rough. "A deal, a deadline. I told her to go on. I'd catch up. I didn't." The memory hurt like a knife, cutting deeper with each word. The call came at 2 a.m. A hospital, a crash, Emily gone. He'd stood in the morgue, looking at her still face, her laughter quiet forever. "I keep thinking if I'd gone with her," he stopped, unable to finish. But Lila reached across the table, her hand touching his, warm and steady. "You couldn't have known," she said, her voice soft but strong. "You carry her with you, just like I carry Amara. That's what keeps them alive." Her words helped, but they didn't stop the questions burning in his mind. Why did her songs feel so heavy? What was she hiding in the gaps between her words? The notebook became his nightly habit, its pages a guide to a truth he couldn't see yet. He read it under the dim light of his penthouse, the city's glow casting long shadows on the marble floors. Amara's words mixed childlike fun and dark hints, her simple rhymes tied with scarier lines. "The moon's my friend, it'll never end," she wrote, followed by "The men in white take the light, they hide it in the night." He traced the words, his fingers shaking. What had she meant? The hospital, St. Mary's, stuck in his mind, his company's money, the research wing, the test trials he barely remembered okaying years ago. Was there a link? His stomach twisted, a feeling of worry growing. What had Amara seen? What was Lila keeping from him? One night, he found a hidden page in the notebook, stuck in the binding, written in a shaky hand that wasn't Amara's, but Lila's. "Mom, I don't trust them. They took my light." His stomach turned, his heart racing as he read it again. This wasn't a child's rhyme. It was a cry, a warning, written by a mother in pain. What had happened in that hospital? What had Lila seen or done that she couldn't talk about? He confronted her the next night, holding the notebook out like proof, his voice calm but pressing. "Lila, what's this? What did Amara mean by they took my light? And why is this in your handwriting?" Her face went pale, and she stepped back, her hand shaking as if the notebook burned. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice so quiet, full of fear that chilled him. "You can't. Just leave it alone, Ethan." But her eyes held more than sadness. There was anger, guilt, a secret ready to break free. What had she seen in those last days? Who was she protecting? Amara's memory or someone else? I can't leave it alone, he said, stepping closer. His voice low but strong. Your songs, her words, they're pulling me in. I need to know the truth. For Amara. For you. He meant it, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the truth might hurt them both. What was she hiding? Was it tied to Amara's death, or something that could shake his company? She shook her head, tears falling down her cheeks, her voice breaking like glass. You don't know what you're asking, she said. Some truths, they break you. She turned away, her shoulders hunched, and Ethan felt a chill that wasn't from the air. What was she afraid of? Had she been part of something she couldn't admit, or was she hurt by a truth too big to face? The music program Amara's song started to form, a light of hope in the growing dark. Ethan found a small community center in Lila's neighborhood, a place where walls rang with laughter, and the air smelled of paint and new chances. Lila agreed to help, slow at first, but her eyes brightened when she talked about the kids who would sing there, of the music that could keep Amara's spirit going. They worked together, planning classes, picking instruments, their hands touching as they passed papers, their eyes meeting in moments that felt like promises. The center was a safe spot, its old wooden floors and odd chairs so different from the cold office building. Lila's voice filled the space, teaching kids to sing Amara songs, her laughter mixing with theirs, a sound that warmed Ethan's heart even as the mystery stayed. But the office grew stranger, the disturbances more frequent. Lights flickered when Lila sang, her voice seeming to summon something unseen. Papers vanished from Ethan's desk, only to reappear with Amara's lyrics scrawled in the margins. The shadow knows what they did. One night he heard a child's voice, faint but clear, singing, "The shadow listens when you sing." His heart raced. Was it Amara, or his own grief playing tricks? He asked Lila about it, but she shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. You're imagining things, she said, but her voice trembled, and he knew she was lying. What was she so afraid of? Was it the truth about Amara's death, or something more? A secret that tied her to his company, to the shadows that seemed to follow them? Ethan began digging into old company records, driven by a gut feeling he couldn't ignore. What he found chilled him. MedCorp, a subsidiary of Caldwell Enterprises, had funded experimental treatments at St. Mary's, trials that were quietly buried after failures. Patient names were redacted, but one caught his eye: Amara Johnson. His stomach twisted. Was his company involved in her death? Had Lila known all along? And if so, why hadn't she said anything? He pored over the records late into the night, the office silent except for the hum of the air conditioner, which now seemed to carry a whisper, a faint echo of Amara's song. Was it his imagination, or was something watching him? One night, as he sifted through files, a note slipped under his door, written in sharp, unfamiliar handwriting. Stop digging, or you'll lose everything. His heart pounded, the words a cold blade against his spine. Who was watching him? Was it someone in his company, or someone tied to Lila's past? He showed her the note the next night, his heart racing as he waited for her reaction. Lila, what's going on? Who sent this? And what does it have to do with Amara? Her face went white, her hands trembling as she backed away. I told you to leave it alone, she whispered. But her voice held a new edge. Anger, fear, and something else. Something that looked like guilt. You don't know what you're stepping into, Ethan. What was she hiding? Had she been part of a secret she couldn't speak? Or was she protecting someone or something else? The air between them crackled with tension, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down like storm about to break. The community center grew, its walls painted with rainbows in Amara's honor, its rooms filled with the laughter of children learning to play guitars and sing. Lila taught them, her voice steady but her eyes haunted, as if she expected the shadows to come for her. Ethan poured his resources into it, defying his board's warnings that the project was a distraction, a risk to his empire. Richard, his mentor and a senior board member, grew particularly vocal, his eyes sharp as he cornered Ethan in the boardroom. Focus on the company, Ethan, he said, his voice smooth but edged with warning. Some things are best left buried. Ethan's gut twisted. Did Richard know something about MedCorp? Was he part of the secret Lila was hiding? Ethan met a former MedCorp scientist, Dr. Alan Kessler, in a dimly lit park, the man's face shadowed by a hood. The trial was rigged, Kessler whispered, handing Ethan a USB drive. They knew the drug was dangerous, but profits came first. Amara was one of the test subjects. Her mother signed the forms under duress. Ethan's blood ran cold. Had Lila known? Was she part of the cover-up? He confronted her that night in the center, the children's laughter fading as he showed her the files. Did you sign for this? Did you know it was risky? Lila's face crumbled, tears streaming as she sank to the floor. They said it was her only chance, she sobbed. I was desperate. After she died, they paid me to stay quiet. I thought it was to help me move on, but it was to bury the truth. I've been living with the guilt ever since. Ethan knelt beside her, his heart breaking for her pain, for Amara, for the role his company had played. We can expose them, he said, his voice fierce, together. But as they planned, the threats escalated. A fire alarm blared in the office, smoke filling the halls, but no fire was found. The USB drive vanished from Ethan's safe, replaced with a note. The shadow knows. Who was behind it? Richard? Or someone closer? The disturbances peaked, a voice, Amara's voice, echoing in the empty corridors. Mama, they took my light. Lila heard it too, her face pale. She trying to tell us something, she whispered. She wants justice. The center thrived, a haven of music and hope. Maya, a young girl with eyes like Amara's, became Lila's star student, her fingers dancing over the piano keys, playing a tune Amara had loved. She reminds me of her, Lila said one afternoon, her voice soft as she watched Maya, a smile breaking through her grief. Ethan nodded, his heart swelling with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. But the mystery loomed, a dark cloud over their hope. Ethan dug deeper, uncovering emails that confirmed the trial's failures were deliberate, approved by Richard himself. The realization hit like a blow. His mentor, the man who guided his career, had let children like Amara suffer for profit. How could he have been so blind? He confronted Richard in the boardroom at midnight, the city's lights casting long shadows across the glass walls. You approved this, Ethan accused, laying out the evidence, emails, patient records, Kessler's testimony. You let children die for money. Richard's face twisted, his eyes cold. You don't understand the stakes, Ethan, he said. This company is bigger than one girl, one trial. You're risking everything. Before Ethan could respond, the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. Lila gasped, clutching his arm, her breath shallow. A figure moved in the shadows, a silhouette against the city's glow. When the lights flickered back on, Richard was gone, and on the table lay a small recording device, its red light blinking. Ethan pressed play, and Amara's voice filled the room, faint but clear, recorded in her final days. Mama, don't trust the men in white. They took my light. Tell the man with the sad eyes. He'll know what to do. Ethan's heart stopped. The man with the sad eyes. Was that him? Lila sobbed, her hands covering her face. She knew, she whispered. She knew they were lying. The recording cut off, but a new sound emerged, a low hum, growing louder, like a song from the shadows. The office door creaked open, and a figure stood there, cloaked in darkness, holding a document that could change everything. You wanted the truth, a voice said, cold and unfamiliar. Now you have it, but can you survive it? Conclusion for our Story Soul Secrets community. Dear beautiful souls, if this tale of Ethan and Lila, of songs and secrets, has stirred your heart, don't miss what comes next. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to join our family of dreamers, where every story unveils a new truth, a new hope. Will Ethan and Lila expose the conspiracy? What does Amara's final message mean? Stay with us for more captivating stories that light up the dark, just like this one.